right, welcome back to CKLA Chats. I am DLC Foster-Yankey, and joining me is my co-host.
Ashley Giles, thanks for joining.
So in this video, we are in Unit 8, 4th grade, Unit 8, Treasure Island, and we're on Lesson 3, Characters in Adventure Stories.
All right, let's jump right in. So for the core text for this, for today's chapter 3, it is a close reading. We have already read this chapter, the Sea Chest, chapter 3. The purpose for reading: students are reading carefully to explain how the use of figurative language helps to tell the story. And remember, everything that they're reading, they're probably going to input this in their writing just for me to make that reading and writing connection. So today we have a very short lesson. We have a shorter lesson. Seemingly, it's just 2 components. You have your reading component, 45 minutes. We're going to review the chapter, reread chapter 2, discuss the chapter, and our word for today will be the word stun. And then for writing, it is also 45 minutes, strictly writing, no morphology, grammar, and all that good stuff. So for the writing today, you're going to choose their setting. Yesterday they brainstormed. Now they're going to actually select it. And they're going to plan a character sketch. So think about those characters in their story. So talking about the reading component, as we already stated, this is a close read, and the cub is the students will know the key details of figurative language used in chapter 3. They will understand the author uses figurative language, and they will be able to demonstrate understanding of figurative language used in chapter 3 by interpreting phrases that include similes and idioms. All review. So hopefully the learning has stuck and they are able to identify those within their reader. Okay, so let me get mine out so I can't see, but
Right.
so Sarah, if you want to help me, we're going to start off with the assessments here, and if you could help me explain exactly what they are. I mean, I know what they are, so I know, but I just can't see it or remember because we do so many
Right.
recordings. So,
This is activity page 3.1. They're going to be working on this with a partner as they read chapter 2. There are there's a multiple choice question where they have to cite their page number after they've answered. They answer questions about similes, setting, the 2 places where action happens in the chapter. There is a dialogue question, what we learned from the conversations. They answer another question about an idiom, one of the phrases and how it contributes to the meaning of the passage, and also just some literal questions about what happens in the reading. And for every question, as they answer it, they're going to be supporting their answer with the number where they found the text.
I appreciate that. Now, thanks for jogging my memory. So, yes, there are multiple things that everybody's doing, that the students will be doing upon completion or during following the reading of this chapter. So, let's go ahead and dig in to see the contents of exactly what we are going to be doing. So, as I've said, we're going to review the chapter with the students. This teacher will tell them that this is a rereading. Of course, you're going to turn to the table of contents or locate the chapter, right? These things are repetitive. Students know that they have done this. Now, this lesson says you may wish to review the vocabulary words. It says it in the curriculum. You may wish. So to me, my first thought was know your students. If you know that you need to review that, know your kiddos. If you don't think that's necessary because we have gone over this chapter, it indicates you may wish to review the vocab. Then we will, once they get to the chapter, students will have 25 minutes to read the chapter. It says encourage, at this point of the school year, right? We're at the end of the year. These are 4th graders moving into the 5th grade. So at this point, students should be reading independently, reading to themselves. And so, depending on your kiddos again, but differentiating your assignments, differentiating how you have them read, but just keeping in mind by the end of the year, they should be able to read this by themselves. Or you can, and it does say you can pair them up to read, but some students may want to work independently. So as students are reading, they are going to be completing that activity page that we discussed earlier. So of course, if they're going to be reading, and maybe the teacher could be pulling a small group, I would go over the activity page with the students, talking about each section and the expectation of each section, because as they're reading, they should be completing the activity page 3.1. As they're reading, teacher is circulating the room, ensuring the students are reading and completing the activity page and offering guidance. Of course, I'm going to say here, if students are reading in pairs, teacher pull a small group if needed. There are some supports on the side. It says you could pair a strong partner with, pair each student with a stronger partner. So, leveling those pairings. Also, it says pair them and so they can complete that activity page. So some other students may need some extra assistance. And it says let them decide. You want to read with the partner on your own. Give them that autonomy to be able to decipher which one they want to do. So upon completion of that reading and completing the activity page, bring your class back together for chapter discussion, which will be 10 minutes. And here, you're going to take out, you're going to have them look at 3.1. And if they haven't finished, they can finish at a later time, it states. But then you're going to go back to that character chart. Remember, as we're introducing new characters, we're going to keep adding descriptions and key details about the characters that are introduced. So once we come back during this time, we're looking at our character chart on activity page 1.3, and we are adding to the characters. And for this particular section, Dr. Livesey, the Squire, Pugh, Long John Silvers. So we're going to be taking some notes on these characters, plus adding to Jim Hawkins. And so it states explicitly, clearly in the curriculum who you're adding information to. Also, it says allow students to have discourse. This is a perfect time for students to be able to talk about these characters as you guys are jotting it down on the character chart. If you have the anchor in your classroom, make sure you're recording some entries as well as the students recording them in their activity page 1.3. And that'll conclude the discussion of the chapter. And I just want to make a connection to the Long John Silver. Like when I first saw this, I thought of the restaurant, right? Like, oh my gosh, we've seen these restaurants, forever growing up. Now I know where it came from. You know what I mean? So I'm just curious if our students will know, like, oh my gosh, we ate there. Why do they call it Long John Silver? Because it's the captain's catch, the catch of the good treasures, I guess, so that's what I'm thinking. So I don't want to spoil the story, but I guess I kind of did already. But anyway, we're going to move on to the word work. Our word work is only 5 minutes. The word is stun. This is a routine. So I always like to pose, what's your routine for word work? It's not a new component. It's something you do every day since previous units. Talk about the parts of speech, and always, the definition, and you have an activity that they're going to do. And basically, they're going to pair up with partners, and they are going to share with them a time that they were stunned. And so they're going to share that with their partners. Of course, I would love for them to share out how they were stunned and tell us about that experience. And that will conclude the reading portion. Moving on to writing.
My favorite part.
Hey.
Right. So for writing, students are going to be using descriptive details to create a character for their adventure stories. So the teacher is going to be reminding students that they're going to write an original adventure story, not a pirate story. And that in this lesson that day, they're going to choose a setting and write a character sketch. They're going to review the features of an adventure story using that anchor chart, features of an adventure story chart. And then This is a review as well from the prior lesson. Have students explain how the setting in an adventure story is both specific and general as a check for understanding. After that, you're going to have students prepare to write their adventure story by first choosing a setting, because choosing a setting first will help them in creating a plan for their main character using a character sketch. So that's interesting to me, that they're first choosing the setting and then using that setting to create the character instead of vice versa.
Versa, yeah. And I guess I'm kind of understanding why, right? What kind of characters are going to live in my setting? So I guess I understand why
Yeah, and I
they're.
think they kind of hit on it in the writing in the previous lesson as well. How in these stories, it is it's like plot driven. We don't get a
Yeah,
lot of the characters' internal thoughts, and they just do stuff, and we don't know
yeah,
why they do stuff. So it's all
yeah,
of yeah, setting is going to be important to that. To that.
yes, to that
Um,
plot.
so the teacher's going to refer back to their writing prompts, have a student read it, and then have them turn to activity page 3.2, which is here, and have a different student read the first question on that chart, which is, let me pull it up. What is the setting for your story? So if they didn't have enough time in the previous lesson, the teacher's going to have them brainstorm different settings and then write the possible settings on the board or on a piece of chart paper. Well, I like that. A space station. That's a lot of cool suggestions here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they will choose one setting from the list and then ask students what types of characters might populate a story about that location. So it has to make sense, right? So
Right,
if the setting is space, then you shouldn't have jungle creatures roaming around. So making
right,
sure they understand that they have to go together.
right. Has to make sense.
And then students select a setting that they would like to use for their adventure story. Like I said, keeping in mind that the setting will help determine the kind of characters they create because their character will be stranded in this location. Then students write the setting they will use for their adventure story in the first row on activity page 2. So that's the very first blank there. And students read the second question on the setting chart, which is what kinds of characters might appear in your setting. And that's the first choose a setting. Filling out those first two blanks. What's the setting and what kind of characters might appear there? Have to match. Have to match.
I like how we're breaking it down, where it's not overwhelming. We talked about setting in the previous lesson, but now we're actually putting it down, giving the kids some time to really think so they can craft this story like perfectly, right?
So they have 15 minutes for that component. Then they're going to move on to planning a character sketch. The teacher will display the character sketch posters prepared in advance. I don't think I got that one from the digital components, but it is there. Students are going to take turns reading the quotations and inferences on the poster. You know what? I do have it. Never mind.
Yay.
So reading this, and engage. The teacher will engage students in a brief discussion about some of the inferences, discussing how the quotation led to that inference, paying particular attention to the examples of descriptive.
Carry. Oh,
What are
descriptive.
we figuring out about these? Like the author doesn't just come out and tell us that a character is mean or um, intelligent.
Right.
We infer those. These are
Mhm.
examples of how we make those for them to as a model for them to
Yeah.
base their writing on. Students identify important details about Billy Bones that are listed in the character sketch poster. So they're making inferences about him based on those statements. The teacher explains that the character sketch about Billy Bones because it explains the kind of character he is. Students go back to activity page 3.2 to complete the My Character part on the activity page. That's the bottom part in the second page there. They should be as specific as possible when they create their character. The teacher reminds them to use descriptive language, show rather than tell, as they did in Unit 1, Personal Narratives. and remind them that that means using descriptive language to make writing more interesting and detailed. So I thought a good, it offers supports, has some great supports and margins, but I thought another support, a couple of supports might be to allow them to draw their character first and then fill out that chart based on
Mm.
what they drew. And then
Mm-hmm.
also the teacher might provide some character trait words, and they could add those to their drawing as they're thinking about what kind of person they want their character to be.
Yeah, love it.
So while they're working on that, the teacher's circulating, checking in, making sure that they're planning and supporting them as needed. As time permits, they share some of their answers from the activity page or discuss the writing, asking, talking about how the setting and character relate to one another. And the teacher is going to select this activity page to review and monitor student progress because they're going to come back and refer to them in lessons 4 and 5, and
Yes.
also later in lesson 8.
Yep.
That concludes the writing.
All right.
And that also concludes lesson 3.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you for lesson 4.
Thanks. See you in the next video.
Bye bye.